So I didn't know this until the other day, but if you are a white person, you are not allowed to adopt a child who is black, Asian, any non-white child. You're not allowed to adopt. And there's not a law that says that. There's not a rule that says that. It's just people get real mad when you do that, so you're not allowed to do it. That's at least the perception that I've gotten, because I saw this video of Michael Chandler, who's a UFC fighter, talking about him doing just that. He's a white man. He's married to a white woman, and they have adopted 2 black children. Now, people have always talked about Michael Chandler adopting 2 black children for the longest time, but I guess he sat down and actually decided to talk about it in a more detailed manner. And it was actually a really good conversation, but based on like this little part of it, people are now extremely pissed because this is the picture that you get on a Christmas card if you receive one from Michael Chandler. I guess he didn't get the memo, but he did it wrong. Is because he's white, if he wanted to adopt children, well, then he's only allowed to adopt white children. No one else. Despite the fact that these 2 children now have a home, that doesn't matter. They're black, and he's the wrong color. So he should have corrected himself and done it the right way. Now, before I indulge on everybody who I saw who had a problem with this white man adopting 2 black children, here's him kind of going more in depth about it, about how he's raising kids and not just black kids, and how he's raising men and not just black men.
I'm not raising black children. I'm raising children. I'm not raising black men. I'm raising men. And whether you are black or you are white, no matter what race that you are, there are certain things about being a man and being a good man when it comes to character and integrity and safeguarding the helpless and sticking up for those who need it and being a good man of reputation. None of that has to do with skin color. Everything has to do with the character of the man. And like I said, it's probably probably not an answer that some people would say is important, but that's where the world has gone, where we think that the most important thing about us is our skin color or our gender or our sex or our political affiliation or all these different identity politics or the identities that we put on each other, when really we're just human beings on this earth. And there are certain things about being a good person that transcend skin color and age and sex and religion and all of those different things.
So you watch that and you formulate your own opinion on it. Everyone's entitled to theirs. I thought it was fantastic, but that's just me. But that don't really matter, because then the first quote tweet that I see of it is that he's too stupid to even understand the privilege you have to even say something like this. And then I just saw one after another, just straight dogging this man because of what he's saying. And now here's where we settle in. So let's go ahead and let's go. There's about 2 schools of thought here when I'm looking at this, and then I just see the influx of replies basically dogging this man because he's white, raising black kids, and focusing more on developing them as human beings instead of harping on the racial component of their makeup. So when I'm dwelling in the first school of thought, here's where I come from. I understand where people are coming from, the angle of which they're coming at this, when they're talking about their frustrations because they think that he's not informing these black children about their culture and the possible experiences that they could go through when they grow up and then when they go out to the world being black in this country. I understand where they're coming from. I get it. Despite the fact that I think that it is ridiculous to dog this man for trying to parent in the best way that he can or name calling him, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But in an effort for me to try to be understanding and empathetic, I see where some of these people are coming from. The problem, and I've talked about it before, but I don't mind spinning the block when it comes to situations like these. The problem is that you have a select group of people who overindulge on race being the focal point of their and everyone else's existence to the point where it supersedes their basic existence as a human being. And I see this play out in real life all the time, but I saw an example of it like a couple of tweets under, and I'm like, okay, well, that's just real convenient for what it is that I'm gonna talk about. So let's talk about it. This person tweeted out this video of this white soccer player basically engaging with these kids. And this is one black kid who has his hand out trying to get some dap, and the white dude doesn't dap him up, as you can see in the video, right? Now, you can see that he taps the black kid's shoulder to acknowledge him, and it looks like he just kind of disregards the dap. But when I look at it, I'm like, okay, his head is moving left and right. Maybe he just doesn't necessarily recognize it. And I say that because then there is a picture of him wrapping his arm around a kid. And then there's another video of him acknowledging the kid some more. So it's okay to give this individual the benefit of the doubt that he just did not recognize what was going on. But that didn't stop somebody from quote tweeting this and joining the sweepstakes for the dumbest tweet that I've ever seen in my entire life. Homeboy said black children must learn from a very young age that these white men are not their friends. So you want to take children when they are young and indoctrinate them and feed them lies that someone who is a different skin color than them is not their friend based off of one interaction between a white man and a black child that you not only took out of context but refused to add more going forward, and then clearing up the air once it was revealed that this man actually acknowledged his child a few minutes later. But this is what happens when you're blinded by race, and when you look around, all you see are how racial differences create such a stark divide between people that's how they should be assessed above anything else regarding their humanity and their makeup. Is race is number one, and then everything else is far down the list. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but then I look around and then I see people who talk like this and who think like this, and I'm like, well, it's not surprising that everyone hates each other on the basis of the race. And that's not just a one-way street. Yes, there are white people who don't like black people because they're black.
Kick that nigger bitch off the plane!
Sir, please you stop. Need to stop. There are children. Please stop.
Nigger!
There's also black people who don't like white people because they're white.
What exactly are white people superior at?
Smelling funky.
Bring all the other races into it, and then you can mix and match. Asian people don't like Mexican people. Mexican people don't like black people. Black people don't like Asian people. Asian people don't like white people. I mean, you can divvy it up however you see fit, but when you look at life in the way that this individual looks at life, I'm like, dog, what else are you going to expect? It's like you want people to come together, but then you promote teaching black kids that white people are not their friends. So then they're going to grow up and be like, well, I don't like white people because I was taught from an early age that they're not friends with me. All of this stuff is taught. So regardless of what race you are, any prejudice you have toward another group of people, that's not genetic. That wasn't something that you were born with. That was something that you were taught. So making race the number one factor in how you assess someone's humanity, I mean, like, what are we actually talking about right now? Obviously, it's going to yield problems. And now it's transitioning into this, is that this white man, Michael Chandler, has adopted 2 kids who are black, and people are more focused on the fact that he's the wrong skin color than the fact that these 2 kids now have a home, which operates as a perfect segue into the second school of thought, which is, oh, dare I say it, I really don't want to, but I'm going to anyway, personal responsibility. But I'm going to anyway, personal responsibility. And trust and believe, I promise you, what I'm about to show you, I don't manufacture this. I don't make this up. Dog, this stuff just writes itself. And I just come on here and I just talk about it. It's a bunch of black people who are coming at Michael Chandler, a white man, for adopting 2 black children because they feel as though he is ill-equipped to be able to raise 2 black kids. He's not the right skin color. He's stripping them from their culture. He's not teaching them about how they're going to be discriminated against at such high rates when they go out into the world. Now, just a quick point before I get into what I'm about to get into is on a realistic note, yes, there are people who look at race and it's something that they hold in very high regard. And I don't necessarily say that in the most flattering way. It's a lot of people who look at someone else's race with disdain. True. But for a lot of people, and I feel like I can say this because being a black person, and I've dealt with a lot of white people in my life, most people, they wake up and they have similar motivations as everyone else. Is they wake up, they leave the house, they want to go do their business in the world, whether it's a job or going to school or whatever, and then they want to come home. That supersedes a lot of the manufactured BS that people put out there that they think people focus on. So believing that Michael Chandler is ill-equipped to teach these kids how to grow into fine young men who can be positive additions to society is crazy, simply because you think that because he's a white man, he is going to fail at raising these black kids in an adequate way. That's crazy, but it's not crazier than what it is that I'm about to get into right now. Once again, let me lay the scene for you right now. It's a bunch of black people who are mad at this white man for adopting 2 black kids because they feel as though he is not well equipped to handle that responsibility, as opposed to appreciating the fact that these 2 kids are no longer in the system and they are within the confines of a stable home. But let me talk to you real quick. Walk with me. I just want you to walk with me for a few minutes because we're about to go down a real messed up street, dog. There's about just shy of 400,000 kids in foster care. A lot of kids who don't know their parents or who did know their parents but are now currently in the system and do not have a stable home, and that's messed up. So above all, the goal, regardless of anyone's feelings about any racial issue or any other political issue, should be to get these 400,000 kids into stable homes. That way that they don't have to grow up in the system. But it's clear that a certain group of people don't care about that. So I'm going to stay on topic real quick, right? The topic is there's certain black people who are mad at this white person for adopting 2 black kids. You want to know something that is so crazy to me? This is so crazy to me. And it's so messed up. Black children make up 14% of all children in the country, but they make up 22% of all children in the foster care system. So their makeup within the system outweighs their representation in the country as a whole. When you stack that up against white kids represent 49% of the nation's child population and only 43% of its foster care population. So more children in the nation than there are in foster care. Latino or Hispanic children represent 26% of kids nationwide, yet 22% of all kids in the foster care system. Once again, another group whose child population within the nation, period, outweighs their representation in the foster care system. But when you look at us African Americans, our child population in the entire nation as a whole is 14%, but our representation within the foster care system is 22%. That doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. And what I'm about to say doesn't specifically apply to this situation, but there's a bit of a parallel that I'm trying to follow, right? So it's in the vicinity. When you're talking about abortion rates, right? So children who didn't even make it to term, who are not a part of the system, when you take all the states in this country and you average them out, you see that Hispanics make up 22% of all the abortion cases that take place in this country. White people make up 30% of those cases, and black people make up 42% of the abortion cases that take place in this country. Now, keep walking with me. I'm talking about this for a reason, so keep walking with me. Let's look at the reasons, the most common reasons as to why people get abortions. 0.2% is because the mother's life is in danger or a major bodily function of hers would be put at risk if she were to go to term. 0.3% is and incest. 1.3% deals with fetal abnormalities. 2.5% of these cases deals with other physical issues that might pertain to the child or the mother. And a very small percentage, 95.7% of these cases are a result of elective and unspecified reasons. Now, what I notice is that there's a lot of red tape when it comes to the language used when you're talking about very sensitive topics. So I will rip that tape off and just tell you what these quote unquote elective and unspecified reasons are. Financial circumstances, can't afford to have a kid. Timing, it just wasn't right. The stars didn't align. We're not ready yet. Partner related issues, we're not getting along, or one party is being abusive to the other. Other responsibilities, I got other kids, or I have a career, and having a kid would derail what it is that I'm trying to build. Emotions and mental health, so you're not in the right state of mind. Emotionally, you're not in the right headspace to have a child, so you're going to go through with an abortion. So outside of rape and incest, life is in danger, physical health is at risk, there's about 95 to 96% of these cases that occur in which two consenting adults just said, we're not ready to do this for X, Y, or Z, so they go through with it. But let's say that the child does make it to term, they're alive, they're in the world, yet they get put in the foster care system. Why does that happen? Main reasons: abuse, neglect, abandonment, addiction, parents are on drugs, and they can't take care of their kids. And let's go one more step further. Let's say you don't put them in the foster care system and then just leave them to their own devices. Let's say that you put them up for adoption, you deal with someone directly, or maybe they're in the system for a little bit, but they get adopted by someone else. But you put your children up for adoption. Why would you do that? Most common reasons, and these will sound familiar: money. We don't have enough money. We're not in the best financial position to raise children. Future plans, I got dreams, I got goals, and if I have a child and I try to raise a child, they will mess that all up. Not ready or too young, stars didn't align, I got all this life to live. Having a child right now would just mess that up, so I'm going to put them up for adoption. Can't raise another child, you already have children. Bringing another one into your family is just going to be too much of a responsibility to deal with, so you put the child up for adoption. And it goes on and on and on, and gives examples of things that you've probably heard of a million times before as to why people either get abortions or put their kids up for adoption or put them in the foster care system or do something else to their children besides raising them. Now, I bring all these cases up because it baffles me that we only make up 12 to 14% of the total population of this country, yet we contribute so much to statistics like abortion and putting your kids up for adoption or putting them in the foster care system compared to other racial groups. Yet we'll go and dog this man for taking these two black kids out of that system and providing them with a good home. Because if you want to circle back to the beginning of what it is that I am talking about, I'm not bringing this up to nitpick and to cherry pick a certain group of people, that being us. What I'm telling you is something that's real, is that we make up such a small percentage of the population, but it doesn't look like it, considering how much we contribute to something like kids, African American kids, in the foster care system, dog. Now, I'm not just trying to gloss over these issues as if they're not nuanced and detailed. I get that. But it don't take away from the fact that these numbers and these realities still exist. So the fact that I see so many black people coming at this white man for adopting these black kids, yet they won't hold their own people accountable to be like, man, what the hell are we doing? Why is it that we make up such a small percentage of the population compared to another group, yet we have more kids in the system compared to our population size when we're stacked up against them? Or a racial group in which we are kind of neck and neck in terms of how many of us are in this country. Why is it that their discrepancy does not look like ours? Why is there a higher percentage of kids who just exist in this country, period, than there are kids in the system for those groups? And I'm not saying this because those people are off the hook. Kids being in the system, period, sucks. It don't matter what color they are. But because we're talking about a very specific issue, I sit there and I scratch my chin and I'm like, dog, that doesn't make any sense. If you're a black person in this country and you're looking at this man and your first mind is to criticize him because according to your standards, he's not the right skin color to raise these kids, because he's not going all BLM on their ass 24/7, talking about how when they step out the house, all these white people are going to start throwing tomatoes at them because they're black and they ain't got nowhere else to go. And he's stripping them of their culture and he's denying them the explanation of what their existence is going to be, because you being black and you're just screwed from the jump. That's crazy. But the fact that people are so quick to go there, I saw nobody, dog, make a quote tweet or put in a comment or say anything about how, man, it is so messed up that there's so many black kids in the system, and how fantastic it is that although 2 is just a drop in the bucket, that's 2 less that are in that system who are now in a stable home with some financial dependency, and they have 2 parents in the house. And what I got from this and then other conversations that I've heard him have about his kids is not that he's trying to strip them of their identity, trying to convince them that they're not black. It's just, I'm not going to raise you by that standard that, hey, you're going to grow up to learn how to be a black man. Learning how to just be a man supersedes any of that. And I know everyone's experiences are different, so I'm not here to negate what people go through, but I'm gonna just use my experience. I'm a black man. When I was growing up, it wasn't shoved into my psyche that, hey, I'm black, so I gotta move in this earth a certain way. Now, I also wasn't taught to be ignorant to realities of history and then how some of that bleeds over into today. So I'm not blind to certain racial divides and how specific people are treated based on the color of their skin. But I also have never been taught to move in fear of white people, because at the end of the day, they're people. And this is not 1930, dog, where I can't drink at a water fountain because I'm black. Like, dog, that stuff's not happening. The world is changing, and at least from my perspective, it's getting better. At least it should be. But if you're gonna harp on the racial divides within this country, you're not only screwing yourself, but you're screwing everyone else of who you're poisoning with that mindset, especially when it comes to kids. So hating on this man because he ain't raising the kids how you would want or how someone else would want is crazy, because the buck has to stop at some time. You can't just go throughout life forever, for the rest of time, instilling in black kids that they got to be scared of white people, or that they got to move around white people in a certain way, and then instilling in white kids that they're oppressors and that they got to apologize for the sins of their past forever because of something that they didn't even do. It's like, man, yeah, stuff's not perfect, but don't be naive to think that we're not in a new time. And a fresh slate can start now if people would just get their head out of their ass and stop thinking that everything needs to be about race. It doesn't. This man has taken 2 kids from the system. Why can't that just be a good thing? Because once again, I don't see any of these people who are criticizing this man, criticizing their own people about why it is that they're putting so many black kids in the system. Or I don't see these people getting first in line to adopt any of these kids. But you throwing stones at the one who pulled them out. That don't make no sense, but y'all knew that already. So I don't gotta say too much more about it. It is just real messed up, man. It's so messed up, because I've been looking up and down, and I'm like, man, how can people's focus be so off kilter that they're more concerned with the fact that the dad of these children is white and that they're black, as opposed to the fact that they're no longer in the foster care system and they actually have a home? I do not understand that. It blows my mind, and it is extremely sad to think about the fact that this is a reality that most people live in, is that they are so consumed with issues of race. Half of them are manufactured propaganda shoved in their face, and they take it and run with it, that they would dampen a situation like this, in which you have a husband and a wife who say, hey, let's go adopt some children. That way we can contribute positively to the horrendous situation that we have right now. Because trust and believe, I'm pretty sure the conditions of the system, foster care, etc., I don't think that it's all sunshine and rainbows. Kids sitting there because their parents don't want them anymore. They put them up for adoption for whatever reason, or they just neglect their children because they don't want to own up to their responsibilities. They don't want to get clean, or they don't want to learn to coexist amongst each other to be able to take care of kids. Or they're just highly irresponsible and they just suck as parents, and then their kids get into the system. It's like, okay, 2 kids have been removed from that. That's a good thing. Let's leave it at that and let's move on. But trust and believe, if you want to throw stones at Michael Chandler because he's not the skin color that you want him to be to raise these 2 black kids, please make sure you got enough stones to throw at the people who are contributing to the statistic of black children in the foster care system, despite the fact that we don't even make up the population size to justify that number existing in the first place. Something to think about.